Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Forte Viva. Hope you guys are doing well. If you ask me if I'm okay, I'm not. I'm really not. And I'm sitting next to someone. Well, I say sitting next to someone. I'm joined by someone who's just putting his fingers up and reminding me what happened yesterday. I mean, we've got Luke. Come on, then, get it out. Just get it over with.
Way 3-1.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, I was probably the worst person you could have lost to in terms of the FDF hosts.
Yeah, it's the fact that
I'll try and keep it under control.
Yes, it's the fact that you've got the first win over us. I mean, you didn't beat Salford, and you still got Newport to play. We go to Newport in a few weeks as well. So I dread to think if we lose that one, what Kieran will do if he's ever on. Yeah, I mean, look, I could be better. We'll jump straight into it because I think it's the most important one. You've heard the score. I'm not going to repeat. If you really don't know, just look it up. I'll let Luke start, because his team won, the franchise coming to Blundell Park. Once again, the away team scoring a load of goals and taking back 3 points with them.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting game. I mean, you guys started way, way better than us, so there's no getting around that. I mean, I'm really annoyed with the goal we did concede, but I think you would have scored at some point anyway, to be honest. I mean, I don't know why Lemonhead Evans has not cleared that, because it was really easy. All you had to do was kick the ball out of play, and we don't concede. But, I think after half an hour or so, we woke up and we started to see a bit of a shift. I wasn't seeing enough movement in the first half, and I think by the time we reached the second half, our intensity increased. Our movement off the ball was so much better. We were much more aggressive. Obviously, got the 2 goals in pretty quick succession, and then from there, I mean, we were still kind of on top, I'd say. I think you had your moments. I think the Barrington 1-on-1 was the one that really should have brought it all square again, to be honest. But then obviously, as you guys had to throw bodies forward, gave us a chance to counter, and eventually we took one of the counters to kill off the game. So it's solid. And I think it's the first real show of resilience from us under Lindsay. It's one of those performances where that was a game we 100% would have lost under Williamson. I'm convinced by that.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit from obviously what I saw, obviously being on the wrong end of that. I thought the first half an hour, I thought we played really well. I thought we were by far the better team. I think Luke has gone on about how poorly he's upset with Rose's goal. I thought it was really clever from what we did. Denver Hume just caught the MK backline napping, and it's a typical Rosie finish. He likes to get himself about, and it's a really good worked goal straight from the training ground. Yeah, I think we dominated play without really creating too many clear-cut chances. We had a couple that sailed over the bar. You got the sense that MK were growing into it a little bit first half, but again, never really feel that threatened. There weren't anything major, but you can sense that they were getting into it a little bit. That second half, I simply have no words. We've once again folded like a pack of cards at home. And it all could have been so much different. That Barrington chance is huge. I think if he takes another touch, I think he scores it. It's 2-0, and I actually think we go on and win the game if that goes in. It's just a space that 5 minutes later we found ourselves 2-1 down. Heads drop again. Another 2 goals conceded from crosses. Just rinse and repeat every week from last few weeks. I've mentioned, we're vulnerable from crosses. We can't do this, we can't do that. It's same habits that come into it. I don't mind losing games. If I find it like even that creative ways to lose games. Handball in the last minute, a bit like Swindon did. It's like, yeah, cool. It's just so frustrating that we're clearly not. It's neither we're not learning lessons, or we're not capable of, or players are not capable in doing it. Just track your man for the first goal. The second goal is so disappointing. I pointed out that I went on, Luke, I went on the MK Don's podcast from the other day. I was especially scared of Aaron Namane in particular. And I think that second goal just proves why. That's the goalkeeping for the second. You can see that Jackson Smith was struggling a little bit. but it's so poor. He should not be getting beat at his near post like that. And we just didn't. I mean, we huffed and puffed, but that Callum Ainley chance, I cannot for the life of me why he shot that is literally. There's a defender next to him. I think he's got Jaden Luca right next to him. He goes for the selfish option, goes for goal. If he'd have shot it like on target, and fair enough, it's the fact he's dragged it like 6 foot wide. It's totally unforgivable. And again, I think if he equalises that, it's 2-2, and I think it probably ends like that. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, and we get done on the counter at the end, in which we're going for it near the end, which I don't particularly mind. It's the first 2 goals I'm really disappointed in, and it's again we've conceded 3 goals at home against. I mean, compared to Doncaster and Walsall, I thought MK were there for the taking first half. And that's what really disappointed me yesterday. I was really angry leaving the ground because I don't think we're that far off being a bad team. We just need to focus a little bit more. We need to play better for longer and just cut out basic mistakes that we're doing week on week. And this is why we're so inconsistent. We're pretty much middle of the pack at the minute. And it's just so annoying at the fact that, we're dropping points and we're losing games by making continuous mistakes that we've been making for other games in which we've lost. It's just so boring. I mean, the table suggests we're doing something right, but it's the defeats when we do lose at the minute. It's by a heavy scoreline, especially at home. 10 goals conceded in 3 games is terrible. No dressed up, and home form has to improve as good as our away form has been. But I can't fathom that second half. I really can't fathom how we just sort of fell asleep, and just that second half was a different team from what I saw first. And I've seen it way too many times. It's probably where we are. There's only so many times you can even blame injuries as well, because I get that a lot of these players have played a lot of games, but the amount of times we've just sort of collapsed, I think, at the minute is just totally unforgivable. And I was really disappointed in the manner yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to you guys, I mean, I could see you guys had some quality there. I mean, obviously, especially in the 30 minutes at the beginning of the game. But I think later on as well, you had chances. I think it was just those key moments where we had the quality on the day and you didn't. And it's one of them things, and that's why we're all in League Two at the end of the day, because no one is taking these chances week on week, aside from maybe Port Vale, because I mean I come on here every week moaning at teams that have won for not being ruthless enough, and it's one of them things. Although it has also reminded me that breakaway goal at the end, you guys let MJ Williams do something against you, and
I mean. Look, that's just where we are at the minute. I think actually this sort of break from the league has come at a good time. A couple of games. I mean, we've got Man City's under 21s in the Bristol Street, Wimbledon in the FA Cup next week. I think it's come at a good time, to sort of rest up, maybe play some more fringe players, and hopefully try and get 1 or 2 bodies back in the building ready for AFC Wimbledon, which is our next league game after that. But it's just, we are very 50-50 at the minute. This love-hate relationship with Town at the minute this season has been something, I was feeling high as a kite on Tuesday, and then yesterday was probably the most mardiest I've been after a game. I think just with the manner, I think we've done it again. But there's that. We're moving on. Enjoy it. I hope it makes you very happy. And that just play that clip from Come Dine With Me. Got all the grace and decorum of a reversing dump truck without any time. Yeah, that's that one. Just play that. Right, we'll move on. We need to talk about Carlisle, don't we? They've lost again. I think it's becoming a norm saying Carlisle have lost again. The goal they've conceded is a right horror show from Harry Lewis. I don't know what's happened to Harry Lewis. It was only a couple of years ago I thought he was the best goalkeeper in League Two by a fair bit. I thought he was his spell at Bradford. I thought he was terrific, and since that move to Carlisle, he's just not done at all. It's just I feel like I see a lot of mistakes from him, and there's only really so much you can do that. And yesterday was a really bad one. It was a really bad one. It's another defeat, but I think there's probably got to be stark questions about Mike Williamson. We'll touch on him in a little bit, but I'm struggling to see a direction of where Carlisle are going at the minute.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's summarised pretty well by their stats for the game: 60% possession and 1 shot on target. That really shouldn't happen. When you've got the ball for that much, you have to do something with it. There's not actually any purpose to their passing, and that's a bit of an "I told you so" moment, really, because that was us all over, beginning of the season. I mean, going back to that era, I mean, it was comical. I mean, you kind of saved the ball upwards rather than out, and then let it bounce and drop back into your own net. I mean, that's like, you can't let that happen. I mean, it was, in terms of standard, it's probably closer to like a YouTuber charity match than it was to League Two football.
I got Road to Shore in goal instead.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think they may have had more success with him in goal, perhaps with that specific chance. But yeah, I think it's just, they're just totally incompetent at the minute. There's nothing to them. Like, I mean, I know what the plan is, because obviously I know Williamson, but the plan isn't working. And there needs to be more. They just need to have this motivation to actually go out and do something, play with a purpose. And I'm just not seeing that at the minute.
And you're definitely not getting out with Mike Williamson. From what I've seen, I think that, well, seeing the reaction on there to it last night, I think he's lost the fans. And it's probably one of the quickest instances I've seen any manager lose the backing of the fans in a short space of time. I thought the appointment to start with was bizarre, especially his recent form at MK, heading out of it. The fact that they paid money, in which MK are laughing straight to the bank with that one eventually, how it's turned out since then. But he is not a motivator. He is not, he sends me to sleep, to be quite honest. If I want to go to war, if I had to pick to go to war with any manager in League Two, Mike Williamson would be the last one I'd pick. He just comes across as just so dull, so boring, and stubborn as well. I think he's obviously, we said for the past few weeks, he's come in from a different style to what Paul Simpson was working with, but I can't see him changing. And look, the players have to take so much of the blame for that. Carlisle, from what I've heard, Carlisle are paying massive money for players in which simply have not been good enough. Their recruitment has been poor. On the whole, I'm struggling to see how he responds, how he gets a tune. I fear by the time it gets to January, it'd be too late. I'm pretty much under the impression that that I think they have to make a decision. If I'm going to be honest, I think it's turned that bad so quickly. That's not really much more to say, really. I think they've got to think about it.
Yeah, no, they have. It's yeah. The thing is, they need something to change soon, and they've already gambled on the whole manager thing, and they've obviously got that wrong. I mean, how long do you leave it before you gamble again? Because I mean, if you're dropping away now, the chances of then catching up in a couple of months' time, and it could already be too late by that point. By the time you can actually get the reinforcements in, you need someone that can work with what they've got. But the thing is, I'm not necessarily sure what they've got is enough, regardless. So it is a tricky one. It really is. I mean, I'm kind of hoping he sticks in the job for at least a little bit longer, so Stephen Wern can go there and we can have some more money. Thank you, Carlisle. But yeah, no, it's tough to see where they go from here. It really is.
It's just the manner of some of those defeats as well, I think, are quite telling. Who's their next game? I mean, they've got Wigan in the cup, but they've got Salford next. I think that's, if they lose that, I think it's untenable. I really do. That's pretty much where we are with that. I mean, look, Cheltenham won, and they didn't particularly seem that great themselves, but I mean, they got the job done with the 1-0 win there. But we'll move on. Doncaster, they're a bit good. Going to Yorkshire rivals Bradford, winning 2-1. Another goal for Billy Sharp, and Luke Molyneux as well is a player. We've sang his praises for weeks on end. I particularly, I think I'd probably go as far as say he's the best player I've seen Town come up against this season. Andy Cook put one back, but not to be enough, as Billy Sharp, the more veteran of the two strikers, or two fantastic strikers in this division, in Billy Sharp and Andy Cook, but Billy Sharp on the winning side, and Doncaster, they remain. Well, they're in the thick of it. I nearly said they remain in the top three. They don't. They're fourth. So good job I checked that. But yeah, good one.
Yeah, no, I mean, excuse the pun, but as always, they were sharp getting forward. Yeah, I mean, they it's just the fact that they can score with so few numbers. Like, you look at the goals, and they only had a couple of players forward for those goals in comparison to Bradford. They had 7 or 8 players back, and it still didn't matter. Like, and it's 2 goals on the road and the win against a rival club as well. Yeah, and then the resilience at the end, actually, as well, just to hold on to it, because they were conceding chances towards the end. It very easily could have all gone away, but they've held on. They've shown a fantastic level of resilience there, and I'd say that's a very important 3 points.
Yeah, it is, and look, I'd go into any sort of rival, like local rivalry. I think it's huge. I mean, you mentioned that at the end. The Andy Cook goal 10 minutes from time, just a little bit of, this could be a little bit of a nerve 10 minutes, because Bradford have done all right in recent weeks as well. But they held out pretty well. I thought pretty much all goals were well taken on the player side. You can maybe look a little bit at Sam Walker for the Molineux goal, maybe the defence, I think, because there was an instance where sort of Molineux just sort of dragged it away, and he managed to find space, and like 3 of them on the for, I think it was Carl Hurst, when he had the ball, and you just let Molineux go into extra space. The Billy Sharp goal's a lovely finish, but it's I think disappointing for Bradford, but I don't think many teams will beat Doncaster this year. And it's look, Bradford have had their good run of form at the minute. I mean, they've fallen to defeat, got Aldershot in the FA Cup next, but then they go to Fleetwood after that. So, I think there's a decent opportunity there to respond at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those games. I think they just gave themselves too much to do. Essentially, you go 2 goals down. It's you're always unlikely to come back from that. They nearly did, but not quite. I am going to criticize them for the goals, actually, because like I said, on the flip side for Doncaster, Bradford had so many players back for both of them. Like, there's only a couple of Doncaster players there. Like, between 6, 7, 8 of you should be able to stop 2 players. Like, I mean, I get it. They're efficient going forward, and they're prepared to run at you and all the rest of it. But you should be organised enough, because tactically they actually got it right, because they had the numbers in those situations. They just didn't quite have the know-how to stop it from happening.
Tactic man Luke right there. But no, it's just pretty much that. I've always seen some comments on this game, and just the 2 fan bases. I think I've mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. It's quite an interesting sort of back and forth on Twitter with some of them, and it does look quite ridiculous at times. I think it's probably fair to say, but look, albeit understandable. Look, they're the 2 decent clubs in the league, both vying for promotion, albeit Doncaster, have had a couple of near years. Well, I say a couple. I mean, they have that one season where they finished really low down, and last season where they did make the playoffs. But generally, they've been a successful side in League Two. Not really so much Bradford, other than the one season that they've had in the playoffs in recent years. But no, I get it. But Doncaster coming out on the right side of that, and it's another away win for them. It's another win. I think a much needed one after losing to, I think, a shock result to Bromley in the week. So they'll be really pleased with that, so to speak. Port Vale, they win again. What was wet. Another really good win for them against AFC Wimbledon.
Yes, I noticed you've gone to me very quickly for that one.
Yeah.
It looked like a very good game, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, for Port Vale, I mean, you've scored 3 goals against a team that have been strong defensively. If that's not a statement of intent to the rest of the league, like in addition to their already really good run of form, then I don't know what is. It's just showing what they can do with confidence. I've said this a couple of weeks in a row now, but they're playing with so much confidence, and they're going out there knowing that they can beat anyone in this league. And I mean, that's why they're beating everyone in this league. It's that kind of mentality that makes you incredibly tough to play against. So even if a side does play well against you, there's no guarantee that they'll actually get anything from the game. And that's kind of what's happened here.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're going really well, pretty much just everywhere in it. Players, management, even board. That's their 5th straight victory. We're unbeaten in 10 now, and they picked up 8 wins in that time. 2 draws as well. It's a terrific run of form, and it's very much title winning form. I think we saw something similar last season with Stockport. I mean, they're not far off. I mean, they won 13, 14 in a row, which is just outrageous. And look, Port Vale are not a million miles away from somewhat creating that same thing. Is it maybe too much to say whether they could do that? No, I don't think so. I think they're more than capable, and they're going into every game in a minute, thinking that they can beat anyone. And it's that, I think, that mindset in which Darren Moore has brought in that has really shown. I think I was a little bit sort of touchy, I think, a little bit on Darren Moore. I mean, look, I've never denied the success he has done in management. He's had good success, especially more recently at Sheffield Wednesday. It's clear to see he's a top manager, and he's really getting it right at the minute. So the players, a little bit, I think, maybe fortune with a couple of the goals with the rebound, especially that second one. I mean, Jayden Stockley is proving like the it sort of feels like a little bit of the Michael Smith, like typical like target man number 9, in which that he had at Wednesday as well. It sort of feels like that a little bit. Brandon Glover with the goal, Rico Richards with the second. I think it was always going to be, look, they got themselves 2 goals up. A little bit spirited, a fight back maybe for AFC Wimbledon, but I don't know. I think it's the fact that this Port Vale team at the minute are looking stronger and stronger week by week. And I don't, they may have been a little bit inconsistent, trying to pick up the speed what they have done at the minute, win loss in their last 4 league games. But the fact that they've scored 2 goals there and proven that they can score again. Their defense has been breached a few times in this one. We've mentioned about how good their defense is. I don't think it's the end of the world. If I'm going to be completely honest, I think they'll come up against teams in which they'll fancy themselves to pick up some points going forward.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those games they were pegged back early. 2-0 down very, very quickly. So from there, as I mentioned for the previous game, you're always unlikely to come out with something at that point. But to be fair, they put in a lot of fight, and they very nearly did. And Port Vale ended up having to score a third to actually kill the game off. And I mean, even then, that AFC, they were actually knocking on the door. I mean, they had 21 shots to Port Vale's 10. They were asking the right questions, just weren't quite reaching through, or at least enough to outscore Port Vale. But I think that in itself, outscore Port Vale, that's not an easy thing to do. So I think to run them close, fair play.
Yeah, and especially at the minute, as we said, with how strong Port Vale look. I've mentioned, the fact that actually Wimbledon could get results in it. I think they're looking at their next few games. They've obviously play you lot in the FA Cup next week. Good luck with that. And then their next league game, they play us. So, but the good thing is we're away from home, so we might win that one. Right, so we'll move on to Chesterfield. I think we're an interesting one of the early kickoffs in that one. Look, we've said that weeks on end, Chesterfield have quality. And maybe at times, have just struggled with inability to kill teams off. They weren't losing many games, but maybe just that killer instinct might have let them down in a few games. We know that Morecambe is struggling at the bottom of the table. Struggling for points as it is. Not so much goals, but certainly points. And it looked a pretty close game for a while. I mean, it went from 1-1 then to 2-2, and then pretty much at the end, I mean, Chesterfield sort of just sought after, just controlled it basically, and it looked like the scoreline in particular was a little bit more impressive, in which looking at it, maybe at times what it maybe should have been.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was watching the first half to this before obviously had to head off to our game, but I mean, I left that that game at like halftime thinking, you know what, Morecambe are actually going to get something from this. It was really close. I think Chesterfield started the stronger of the sides. I'd say, you know, they were good going forwards. I think whenever they get the ball to their front sort of 2 or 3 players, it's almost inevitable that they're going to reach the final third and get a shot away. But at the other end, they were getting pegged back a bit more by Morecambe, and you know, when they held them in their own half, I think Morecambe actually did quite well. But I think what this really comes down to it's just the depth. In the second half, you've seen it. Chesterfield have players that can come and change a game, and obviously they did because they went and scored another 3. Whereas Morecambe don't really have anyone that can come on and, you know, change your fixture quite like that. I think this was what I was hoping to see from Chesterfield, a bit more that ruthless sort of nature. And the thing is, looking at the chances they had, they could have actually scored more as well. But that's what you want to see for a side that's hoping to compete towards the top.
Yeah, I think it's more of a case of, I think in the end, I just think their quality just shone through more than anything. I mean, I see the goals that they did score. I mean, Darren Oldacre certainly fooled the goalkeeper, you know, going to the other side where the keeper's to one side. Another really good finish from James Berry. He nearly scored what would have been the goal of the season at one stage as well. Just so desperately unlucky there. But, you know, he took his goal really well. Dobra took his goal, you know, pretty well. And then it was a good header from JB Grimes at the end. I mean, you know, the goal for Dylan Markande's goal as well, you know, took a deflection, but I mean, he'll be claiming that. I mean, positive signs for Morecambe, I guess. But ultimately, it's another defeat. It's another defeat at home, and they find themselves, you know, bottom of the league, you know, 7 points from 14 games. And I think if they don't really, I think we're getting to a point that them and Carlisle, I mean, Carlisle are on 8 points at the minute. I mean, still a fair bit of football to play, but I think they're starting to get to a stage where it does seem like a little bit of a gap is starting to open up a little bit, which is, I think, especially for both of those two in particular, I think it's starting to be more of a concern more than anything.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a tricky one with Morecambe because I actually feel like their performances are starting to improve a little bit. It's just the results aren't quite coming with them yet. I feel like they're not too far away from being able to, you know, pull off a result against someone. Because, I mean, for that first half, they did actually keep with Chesterfield. And like I said, I wouldn't have been surprised if they did take something from that game. But, you know, they need to be able to see out a 90 minutes. And at the minute, they haven't quite got that. I think at the minute, they're quite blessed that Swindon and Carlisle are... you know, in as much trouble as they are, because that's keeping them close and, you know, giving them a chance of, you know, keeping up with at least enough teams to survive. But they do need to start turning, you know, positive moments within the game into extended moments of positivity and then into obviously results as well. And I think that's the only way they're going to get themselves out of there.
Look at it I look at it this way. I think if I have to pick one of two between Morecambe and Carlisle, who I fancy more getting out of this situation at the minute, I will go Morecambe 100%. I've seen a lot more from them to suggest that they can do it than Carlisle, which is very damning on Carlisle's perspective. It's got to be said, but they've just got to find like that sort of balance. They've maybe played some tough games recently. I mean, MK Dons, AFC Wimbledon, and now Chesterfield. I mean, 3 teams in which I think will be at the top end of the table more than anything. They've also got Worthing in the FA Cup next week. But I look at the game after that. They've got Harrogate. That is, I think, huge. If I think, yeah, I mean, Harrogate are very hit and miss at the minute. So I think there's a good opportunity there to pick up points. But that's just sort of where I am with that. Look, it looks like a really good away performance from Carlisle. They wish they had a good away performance. From Chesterfield, I should probably say a team that eventually got a good home win. It's not counting. Look, they're just finding ways to win, albeit if looking at the scoreline, not convincing. It looked like a game in which, you know, they dominated the ball, dominated shots on target. Just the one goal in the second half from Alassane Jatta, you know, is a player that again I've liked. I thought he took his goal extremely well. But, you know, it's totally different to what we were saying about Notts County last year. There'd be results like 4-3, 5-4, 5-5. The fact I don't think I think the fact that maybe they're winning by the odd goal, keeping a clean sheet, albeit it's not as entertaining maybe, but I think that if 1-0 wins, I think I take them all day long. Maybe not being entertained as such, albeit like I said, they probably did dominate most of the play. It's just it makes you not needing medical attention afterwards, I think is probably fair to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you say, it's great to see them actually keeping a clean sheet. That's quite a nice change from last season. But this was, for me, one of those games where they really could have and should have scored a hatful. I mean, as you say, they were dominant. They were totally dominant. There was only ever going to be one winner in this game. And this is these are the sort of games where you want to send out statements. You want to put, 5-6 goals past someone. And they had the chances to do that as well. I mean, it's just one of them. I think especially when you're looking to, when you're at either end of the table, obviously not looking to be towards the top end, goal difference can come into it towards the end. So when you've got a chance to put a team away that's not quite feeling up to it, you've got to make the most of that. And I think it's a wasted opportunity in that sense. But, they got the most important bit done. They got the win and they got the clean sheet.
The win, clean sheet, 3 points, all that matters. Move on to the next one. That's pretty much what that is. What I sense from Harrogate from this one, it feels like some of their last few away performances where they just seem very content with a point, and it's understandable. I mean, look, like we said, the fact that not many teams are going to go to Meadow Lane and win, but the fact that they've gone to Swindon, I think that was probably the more baffling one of the three they've had, because they were very much there for the taking. I mean, the Carlisle one, if we're looking at stats, they were dominated for it, but they did come away with a draw there. I sort of got the impression that they did a little bit there, but not just at the minute. At times, Notts are finding a way, like they did against AFC Wimbledon a couple of weeks back. They're just finding a way to get a win, and it's just. I mean, look, I call us inconsistent, but I'm struggling to see what Harrogate are. I mean, they're just very, I don't really know what more you want me to say now.
Well, yeah, like I said, there wasn't really much to their performance, really. Like I said, I mean, I don't think there was any point where they looked like they were going to get something from that game. They were dominated all over the park. I don't think there's any way of getting around that, really. I mean, like I said, they conceded a lot of chances and didn't create much down the other end. There's only one way that can really go. At most you can, as you say, get lucky and maybe get a point. But against someone like Notts, who are a strong side, especially at home, that's just not going to happen. I think they've almost treated it as a bit of a free hit. If you get something, you get grit, then great. If not, then no worries. They're a bit good. But it could, mentality-wise, perhaps a little bit concerning on that one, I'd say.
You mentioned free hit. I sort of think that's what Harrogate have been in League Two. It's sometimes it's the fact they're still in this league, I think, is probably a big reason for that. But sometimes not. I think at times in which some of the results I think have been quite damning. I mean, the wins, albeit very few, have been pretty decent ones at that. But I can perfectly see why they've done it if they have tried to go that route, which I've seen them do quite a number of times. But it's only so long. I think you could probably somewhat ride your luck. Is probably not the term, but it's look. I mean, the quality of Notts have got eventually. It was always just gonna just one moment has won it for them, and that's what's happened. We'll head to a quick break now. Once we come back, we should talk about Crewe, because they are flying high at the minute. Again, they're another side in which we're praising week on week. Walsall dropped points away at Accrington Stanley, and it might as well have been Ian Holloway's first game in charge at Swindon, but we'll have a look at them, and we'll be talking about not a Swindon defeat, which is quite rare actually at the minute. But we'll a bit more with that and a bit more very shortly. Welcome back to Fourth Tier Fever. Hope you guys are enjoying it so far. We'll head to the county ground now. Now we've talked about the shenanigans at Swindon on a previous like half an hour like short podcast with Luke and Kieran. We won't mention much on this one. I advise you to go and check that out if you've not seen that. Just reacting to the news of Mark Kennedy's dismissal and Ian Holloway's eventual appointment. Look, Swindon and Gillingham, 2 out of form sides at the minute. I don't think it's particularly that surprising to see a 1-1 draw. If I'm going to be honest, I think 2 teams just really out of form at the minute. Mark Barner looked like he was about to cry in his post-match presser, which is understandable, conceding that late to Swindon, who in which they. I think for Swindon's case, so the fact they played most of the game with 10 men with that George Hall red card, to score that late on, new manager Ian Holloway officially starts work on Monday. Maybe the spark that they need to reignite their season. Who knows?
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, it was an uphill climb from the start, really, wasn't it? That was a really early red card. And I mean, Hall's an experienced player, isn't he? Surely he should know better than to go flying in on that one. But
he gave a yellow initially first, didn't he, as well? So it was a very quick turnaround for the red.
Oh yeah, no, probably the right call, to be fair, because it was wild.
Straight through him.
Yeah, no, proper defenders challenge that one. But yeah, I don't know. It's another one of those things where it's like, oh, it's yet another thing that's pegged them back. But in the end, it was fantastic resilience to pull a point away from a moment where they were losing and had less men on the pitch. So they have to get some credit for that. Of course they do, and especially against Gillingham. I know Gillingham have been poor, but I think Swindon just needed any kind of result anywhere, and I think that's quite a good platform to build off, even with the usual sort of on-pitch shenanigans going on and all the rest of it. It will be interesting to see what Holloway does with them, actually, just as long as he doesn't do it too soon, because I believe they're our next league game, so stay away for now, please.
Look, well, look, for Swindon's sake, I'm really hoping that it does work out. I mean, what he did yesterday was obviously quite interesting. He was clearly watching it, and he obviously went 10 men very early on, and he was just up and down the front of the stand like a yo-yo. He wearing his. If you see the picture, I think from what Swindon tweeted, wearing some cap. He looks like a Pete Doherty's like spin-off or something, or a Boy George like a tribute band, tribute show or something like that. It's sort of what he just came out with, but yeah, I mean, he did what he did. He sort of just helped them on near the end, just try and get them this. I think if you're Gillingham, I think for the run that they've been on, I think this is probably. It feels weird because they haven't lost, but to concede that late on to a side in which, with the greatest respect, haven't been great. I do get the feeling. I think Mark Bonner certainly did that. It feels like a defeat, and I agree with that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, not only is it a side that have been really poor, it's a side that had less players on the pitch than you. Like, with the chances Gillingham had, they should have killed that game off long before they did. And, they didn't. They were punished. There's really, really no excuse at all whatsoever for Gillingham to not have won that game. I mean, yes, it's an away game and all the rest of it, but that really shouldn't have mattered in this scenario. It was one of them. You just can't be throwing it away in that situation. I don't know if it's a mentality thing at this point, because I mean the results are, I mean they're very poor at this point, aren't they? You lose this many in a row, and then I mean obviously this one is a point, but it may as well be a loss. Honestly, I don't think, although they have picked up a point, I don't think it's done anything to stop their sort of downwards momentum. They're still sort of plummeting, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's still fairly early on, but you can sort of see that they're very much just slipping down the league quite quickly. I mean, there's still time to change that, of course. I think there'll be ones in which I think they'll be glad that there's a week's break from the league, because I think they'd probably need it. But you look at the game straight after that, I don't think Port Vale is the game that you really want at the minute with how with how flying at with them flying at the minute. Maybe with them at home, you could spring a little bit that. In fact, actually, I'm just looking at the next game after that in the league. They've got Walsall. This is, it's not an ideal couple of games coming after that, especially with the run they have been on. But if they can maybe pick something up from the Port Vale game, it could maybe be the catalyst maybe of trying sort of work their way back up. I think so injuries have maybe hit, maybe a bit of tiredness. I don't know. It does feel like old habits are starting to creep back into Gillingham a little bit. I think we did I certainly pointed that out in like a previous podcast. But they had more than enough chances to win that yesterday, and Swindon will be the happier, especially with 10 men. Ian Holloway obviously starts work on Monday. We'll see what happens with them. I hope he lasts till April. For a further visit to Blundell Park, where we'll give him a little bit of stick, and they'll probably score 3 goals and walk away with 3 points the way we're going at the minute at home. So we'll see what happens with that one, albeit it's not for quite a period yet. Crewe have been super impressive. Another victory yesterday, albeit against Tranmere. I think deeper questions maybe have to be asked of them now. But you can't deny the quality in which Crewe have had at the minute. We've mentioned about their start to death, but I mean, just look at I'm just seeing win, lot. Well, it's just full of wins at me. I think I saw that they're unbeaten in like 9 of like the last 11, 10, 11. I could be wrong. I'll quickly work that out, but it's a very good time to be a Crewe fan at the minute.
Oh yeah, it is, and they're starting to build that positive mentality that we are seeing from Port Vale. And I mean, to be fair, even if you look at the beginning of the game, Tranmere were the ones that opened the scoring, and it was personally, I actually think it was a bit of a harsh decision, because I actually think that very easily could have been given as a foul in the build-up, and I thought it
was personally.
Yeah, 100%. I'm agreed on that. So I think they very easily could have been, felt sorry for themselves and all the rest of it. But no, they kicked on. They were professional about it, and they controlled the game. Eventually, got what they deserved. Clinical with their finishing, and they've pulled off a really good win there. There's not too much more you can say on it. It's just a top performance, and another good one to build momentum.
Yeah, another top result, another top performance from what's looking like at the minute a really top team, with a top manager. I mean, he's just going top all over. But that's pretty much what Crewe are at the minute. Shiloh Tracy in particular, 2 goals from him, 2 assists from Ryan Cooney as well for both of Tracy's goals. I think it's certainly not to be sniffed at. They've got a really good blend in that team. I've mentioned it about Walsall, and I feel like it's somewhat similar to Crewe. They've got a really good blend of maybe some more experienced heads, but you're sticking to your pretty much old Crewe principle sort of way of it's a relatively young squad, and they're thriving at the minute. It's and their form certainly suggests that. I'm seeing I think 2 defeats from their last 10, 11 games. In fact, no, let me count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, like 7 wins in their last 10, 11. It's really good. And how we once debated about Lee Bell's job. Again, we apologise. I don't really know where it's come from. But in saying that, we do have to look at Tranmere. It's another defeat. They've scored in this one, albeit I do think, as mentioned, maybe quite fortunate that the ref hasn't given a foul there. I'm struggling to see much football from Tranmere at the minute. I'm getting to the stage now whether, obviously, if this rumour takeover does happen with them, but I think maybe even before that, it depends how long this takeover is. But I personally, I'm not sure what you think, but I personally think that a couple of questions have to be asked on Nigel Atkins now. I think we're getting to a point in which it just seems a bit dull. It's just very uninspiring, I think, for where they are at the minute.
Well, I almost wonder if it's the personnel up front with them, because aside from Patrick, who have they really got that's gonna change a game in the final third? They're pretty much dependent on him, and then if you've only got one player that you need to worry about marking, that makes it pretty easy to defend against. As you say, to be fair, they did take the chance they had, albeit it was probably a foul that just wasn't given. but they did take that chance well. But where I'm probably most critical of them here is the defending, actually, because it's free crosses. And I mean,
they've been taking tips from us, yeah.
There's three very, very similar goals, and you think at some point they'd learn. It's like the exact same problem, and I think that's going to resonate with you a little bit. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It's not quite clicking. I do think maybe Adkins does deserve more time with it. They can keep games relatively close. I almost want to say give him January and let him change something, get some new bodies in up front, and at that point change things. But obviously, depending on what their ambitions are, it could be too late. It's hard to tell at this stage.
And I'm really intrigued to see what happens if their takeover goes through, because I don't think they'll give them that luxury. If I'm going to be honest, you're pretty much right on I don't see many match winners in that team. I see lack of really any sort of quality that can win games other than Amari Patrick that we've mentioned. But even then, he gets subbed off after like 70 minutes on quite a few occasions, which it doesn't seem. It seems a bit baffling. Maybe when it doesn't look like he's tiring. I just don't really know I don't see much of an identity to this Tranmere side at present, and I'm not surprised in which they're struggling to win games. I mean, it was pretty evident when we played them in the week that why they're struggling. I mean, maybe another side in which quite fortunate as an FA Cup break next week. I mean, their next few games, I mean, they play Newport after that, who are very hit and miss. They've got Fleetwood, who are out of form a little bit. Then they've got Cheltenham. So I think if you're looking at fixtures, there's opportunities for points there, but I think they've got to do it sooner rather than later. Otherwise, I think more bigger and louder questions will be asked. It's not just Adkins. I just think there's these players. I think I don't know. Just not. There's not a lot of talent in that squad. I won't say they're not particularly playing, because I think maybe they are. It's just something not right. There's just something not right in a minute, and I think for looking at it from the eagle eye, I think it's quite evident to see what's not happening. I mean, their lack of goals. I mean, it pretty much sums it up. But yeah, it's a really difficult one. I'm probably not in. I'm more for the impression that I think Mike Williamson's in a hell of a lot more danger than someone like Tranmere. I mean, Tranmere. To be honest, they could very easily be dragged into sort of this ballpark. I mean, a 19th at the minute, but the obvious thing is they need to score more goals. Stating the obvious, but that's what needs to happen. I'm just struggling to see how they're really doing that at the minute. I think, yeah, it's a weird time. I think if you're them. Salford won. Good win at Colchester. Colchester are really baffling me. They've clearly not had the so far the season. I think anyone predicted. Well, maybe anyone that's maybe a Colchester fan, or particularly them. I think the fact they're sitting 21st at the minute. Some goals from Kelly Mai and Killian Kouassi for them. I mean, Harry Anderson did equalise earlier on, but it's another defeat for Colchester. Languishing 21st at the minute. I think a lot was expected. Well, I say a lot, but a fair bit was expected from Colchester this year. But at the minute, I think they're miles off it.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially on this podcast in the summer, we were all sort of singing their praises, and I don't really know where it's gone wrong, because I mean they've had chances in that game, but they were wasteful with it. I mean, maybe they could have generated even more. I don't know, but at home against a side that doesn't really score many, and they've conceded 2, it just doesn't quite add up. They had to get a point from that game at a bare minimum, absolute bare minimum for that game, in my opinion. They've, and especially with the squad they've got as well. Like I said, we keep coming back to it. The expectation. I don't know if that's perhaps getting to them or something along those lines, but I don't know. They're throwing away their season at the minute, and I mean, at the minute they're getting dragged into the wrong end of things. I don't think it will be quite that bad, but they've got to come up with something, some idea, some kind of change. I don't know what that would be, but something's not quite right there.
Yeah, and it's sort of taking me by surprise a little bit. I mean, I think I can't remember exactly where I predicted, but I thought they'd be very much challenging for Perth. But I guess it's sort of that, they've had a long period where they've been around that part of the table for quite a long time now, and it's difficult to shift. But I thought, with Danny Cowley as their gaffer, with some of the players that they brought in, some from League One, some good quality League One players in there. Is it maybe a time to click? I think they've had more than enough time now, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. It's just a really weird one. It's one I don't totally get. I'm curious to hear what Colchester fans have to think about it. But from a Salford perspective, I think, 7 points from their last night, Jake was, Jake put in a comment yesterday saying that, he was so proud because obviously Salford have gone through a fair bit, obviously with, he mentioned, that Carl Robinson has had a week that he never wants again. A lot of stuff that's gone on in and around the club with Matt Smith's daughter and, Conor McElhenney, having family troubles apparently, which was mentioned in his post-match. So, it's 7 points from 9 from obviously what's all the stuff that's going on. I think certainly one in which Carl Robinson and Salford can be proud of, actually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a good away win. Like, there's no other way of putting it, really. They took their chances when they came. I mean, maybe they rode their luck a little bit defensively, but they did enough, and they showed that sort of resilience, that sort of fight you need to pull off those sorts of results. And yeah, it's just good to see them actually starting to build momentum a little bit. They've got this nice little platform now, and they can keep growing and keep building on that. And eventually, who knows where that could take them as long as they keep getting the results. But there's certainly signs of life at this point. Like, they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, and especially for the fact that they're now 3 points off the playoffs, which actually seemed quite a long distance away from Salford where they were a few weeks ago. I think it started to just grow into it a little bit more, which is, well, certainly from their perspective, pleasing to see. And it's just how long they can maybe sustain this, this decent run of form that they're starting to pick up a little bit. We'll have to see for that. 3 games left. We'll rattle through these pretty quickly. Walsall drew 0-0 with Accrington Stanley yesterday. Looked like, looking at highlights, good chances for both teams actually. Walsall having more of it. I think looking at it, Walsall certainly had the better of the chances. Maybe unfortunate not to walk away with 3 points in the end, but I think maybe you look at it, it's a point. Accrington, they've been all right recently. They obviously lost in the week, but they had that run of 3 wins in a row. So maybe not a bad point against a good team. Maybe if you also, it's weird how you look at it. I think, look, away from home, could be a difficult place to go. Maybe a good point, but I think for some of the chances they have got, I think actually they might be disappointed that walked away with 3 here.
I don't know. It's a tricky one. I mean, I think from Accrington's perspective, at least, this is a good point regardless. I mean, even though they've not necessarily scored themselves, they've stopped Walsall from scoring. So, that's impressive in itself. Walsall have been really good going forward this season, to our shock. They've actually done really well going forward. So to not concede at all, it is good going. But then you flip it onto Walsall, and it's like, well, yes, like it's points dropped against a side low in the table, but it's a side that have been suddenly started picking up. And I would actually say Accrington have got a lot better at putting people off of their game plans. Like, I mean, I said it when we played them, they were absolutely horrible to play against. They had a clear purpose, and it made it so difficult for us. And I think they've sort of managed to cancel out Walsall in a very similar way. I mean, both sides had chances and didn't take them, but I think both sides have cancelled each other out pretty well there. And I mean, obviously Accrington happier of the two at this stage to pick up the point, but for Walsall, I don't think it's slowed their momentum too much. It's just slightly disappointing that they didn't win.
Yeah, and I think I've been very complimentary of Walsall. They look like a real good team, and they'll be right up there, I think. I mean, you mentioned about Accrington. I mean, yeah, they've been down there just pretty much by hook or by crook, ways to pick up points. And, if they do that, which especially with the have done recently, then yeah, so great, so be it. They'll be the ones that will be looking back at it thinking, right, okay, that's massive because we put this, we did this against this team and we did this against that one. It's maybe that, but I think, it's not, I think for where they have, I think, it's starting to pick up a little bit. we'll see how long that can continue. But there's certainly been some good signs for Accrington in the last few weeks, especially when it looked for quite a period at the start where it looked a bit bleak actually. Bromley won, Barrow won. I mean, Barrow struggling again a little bit. It's another draw for Bromley. I mean, with the penalty, I mean, look, there's a pretty late penalty in there. I saw that Stephen Clements was red carded for the Barrow boss, but last minute penalty, I think, for Barrow. I think very much a kick in the teeth right at the end, and what actually would have been, I think, a really good away victory.
Well, yeah, it's disappointing. It's one of those, I've said it before, like 1-0 is a very, very dangerous scoreline, like even more so than 2-0, as the saying goes. Like you don't want to be hanging on by one goal because anything could happen. And, well, something did happen in the end, and it's cost them the win. I don't know. I think either way, it wasn't necessarily the most convincing performance. I think it's one of those where they would have, like, if they'd held on to it, it would have been, we take the win and move on. Wasn't necessarily great, but we won. But because they didn't win, it's suddenly a bit more like, this isn't actually all that good. Now what do we do? They do. I think they need a bit of a bounce back from this one, to be honest, because I think they will be disappointed by that, and they won't want to. They won't want to spiral as a result of that. They just need to stay composed and build again.
I think with Barrow's recent form as well, I think it's a bitter pill to swallow. Just the one win in the last 7. A little bit of a concern with how good they've started. I mean, look, Bromley are picking up points. May not be winning a load of games, but they're picking up points. I mean, that's their 4th draw in their last 6. So maybe if they can maybe start trying to find ways to turn points, draws into wins, and then great. I think they'll be laughing. But they're picking up points, but they're also they do need to pick up a little bit more wins along the way. But you can't really complain too much, especially with how late that penalty was. Really good, well taken penalty from Michael Cheek in the end. It's got to be said. And Newport 0, Fleetwood 0. I mean, Bryn Morris had a penalty saved, but I don't really think there's really much to write home about this one. I mean, Fleetwood are without a winning 3. They're a bit of a weird side. I mean, Newport. I think Newport have been. I've seen that Newport have been very much like Grimsby, but unlike us, they've actually picked up a draw in this one. Could have easily been. It could have been a different story with the penalty. To be fair, but I mean, it's not really much more to add if I'm going to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, just like the other 0-0, you've got 2 teams that have cancelled each other out, really effectively. I'd say more so in this 0-0. It was always going to be a case of there's one moment in the game that changes things, but the moment was wasted because that was the penalty and it was saved. So it's one of them. I don't think either team will be too disappointed necessarily with a draw. They'll, perhaps disappointed not to get into the final third and actually take a chance. But I don't know. It's one of those. It's just a proper sort of grinding out result for both sides, really, I'd say.
And that's what it pretty much seems. Maybe a little bit of concern for Fleetwood with, without a win in their last 3, and maybe could have, very nearly easily have lost 3 straight, to be quite honest. But I think it's another point for Newport in what is a very inconsistent season for what they are. I mean, us and Newport, as I said, are just very similar. Just this love-hate relationship that me and Kieran must have with our clubs at the minute this season has been a little bit of a roller coaster. But look, it's just one of them. I think it's a point. They're both 14th, 15th. I don't think it was ever going to be an inspiring game. So there we are. That brings the end to this week's episode. I hope you did enjoy. Luke probably did more than me. But I don't know. I don't know what we'll do next week because it is FA Cup week. We'll see what happens. We might do a special. We might have a week off. We don't know yet. But make sure you do all the usual stuff. Download the podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. Tell us what you thought of the games in the comments. We'll be more than happy to hear your opinions. Luke will go and enjoy himself now. I'd imagine. I'll cry myself to sleep again like I did last night. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Until then, take care.